Hello everybody, this is Valerie Clearman with Purdue Extension in Knox County, and today I'm going to talk about navigating seed catalogs, and this is going to be the first of a three-part series. So today we're just going to get kind of introduced into what seed catalogs are, some of the important terms in regards to zones, and things like that, and start giving you guys a grasp of some just basic seed catalog terminology. So oftentimes in the spring, your mailbox will look like this. I mean, it's just full and full of seed catalogs. You get so many. Every company is a little different, and so it can really be overwhelming about where to purchase your garden seed from. The important thing is choose from a reputable seed supplier. So there are numerous seed catalogs and seed suppliers, and many of them are reputable. But you need to still do your research into the company. So look at where they're based out of. I know we have some companies in Indiana. There are some others that are just scattered around throughout the Midwest. But then there's others, obviously, on the East Coast, West Coast, things like that. Now, since we're in the Midwest, usually I try to look for companies that are maybe located here in the Midwest because they're a little bit more familiar with our weather and things. And that's not to say that those other companies out in the East Coast or the West Coast don't have plants that are good for our climate, but they might have some other things that just don't grow real well here. So, again, you can look at where they're based out of and determine if you think that's okay. Now, again, some plants it doesn't really matter, others it might. So again, it just depends. Also look at shipping restrictions. So sometimes they'll say, can't ship to this state, or can't ship to that state, or maybe there's some fees associated with shipping and things like that. So look at those shipping restrictions. Sometimes they also have little promotional days and stuff like that where they'll do free shipping, and so that's always a great time to order seed when they have those free shipping days. Look at the company's values and missions. Sometimes most of these companies will, explain that, their value is to have the best seed out there or things like that. It might talk about how they got started and kind of what their goal was when they first got it started. So again, it's kind of interesting to read those values and missions for those companies. Again, if those values and missions are completely different than your values, then, might not be the company you want to support. But again, most of the time it's just simply, providing the best seed to our clients as possible and things like that. But again, it is kind of interesting just to see that company's background. Also look for their guarantees. So for instance, if you purchase live plants from this seed catalog, what happens if it's dead when you get it? Or if you get the seed and the box has been ripped open and you lost half of your seed, or whatever might happen in shipping, or by the time between the nursery and your mailbox. Look at what those guarantees are. So some of them might give you kind of an in-house credit. Some of them will replace the plants or the seed or whatever. Again, just look at that and see what types of guarantees and promises they make. That way, if you get something that's not up to your standards, you can call them and again see what that they promise. Again, sales are great because again, gardening can be a little expensive, especially if you have to buy a rototiller and hose and fertilizer and all that. It can definitely add up really fast. So if you can buy reputable, really good seed on sale, that's great. And so a lot of times they'll do sales, early spring, in the fall and things like that. And then again, sometimes they do free shipping events. And so that really can knock off the price of ordering those seeds if you order through that time. Most of the seed catalogs also will have a what's new section. So they'll have new tomato varieties or new flowers for the year. And so that's always kind of cool just to peruse through and see what's new, what's kind of cool. And if you want to experiment and try something new, again, kind of fun to see. Like I said, most of the seed catalogs will have that what's new section on their website, but some of them might not. Also, what else do they offer? So sometimes some of these catalogs, they'll do nursery tours. They have educational videos that they post on YouTube, or they sell other other things like hose and cedars and watering cans or kneeling benches or whatever it might be. But some of them offer a lot of other kind of neat things. So what else do they offer? Is it, are they really helpful with, how to plant those seeds once you get them? Or what else do they offer? Also, can you order online or through a catalog or either or? Oftentimes, they will have web exclusive deals, which are really nice. If you order online, it's just, again, it's as it sounds, it's web exclusive. So that sale is only available if you order online. But again, if online is not comfortable for you to order, you don't have a credit card, or you just don't want to, again, order that way, that's fine. Oftentimes you can get on their website and request a catalog. So again, that's always nice too. Another way to get catalogs is, again, if you know gardeners like myself that have a mailbox full of seed catalogs, we get a lot of seed catalogs. So if you know any gardeners, I'm sure that they'd be willing to share some of the seed catalogs they get in the mail with you as well. The biggest thing that I would recommend on when you're trying to choose a reputable seed supplier is to talk with experienced gardeners, because they, again, have been gardening for a very long time. They're very knowledgeable and they know what works in the area. So they can tell you, oh yeah, well, I've purchased this seed before and it just doesn't work in this area very well. And again, if you hear that from, 10, 15 people, then yeah, that's probably, not a good seed to buy, or a good seed supplier to buy from. So again, experienced gardeners are a wealth of information. There's numerous gardening clubs in all of our communities. And so again, I just recommend, if you're getting started, if you want to go to some of those garden club meetings or things like that and just start learning, learning from those experienced gardeners that are within your area and very knowledgeable of how to grow things in your area, that's definitely the first place to start. Again, if as you're perusing these catalogs, look at those company, product reviews from other clients prior to purchasing. Again, if you see that there's a trend with, a certain sweet corn variety where they're saying, man, this one it doesn't germinate. It doesn't germinate. If you see about, 10 people that say, this doesn't germinate well, then there's probably an issue. Now, if you see one person that says that out of 50 comments, likely not going to be as big of an issue. But again, if 10 or more people start saying, there's an issue here, there might be an issue. So you might want to stay away from that seed or that plant when you're purchasing your seed. So again, it's a very personal decision on seed suppliers. So again, it's just very, very personal. And it also, again, kind of goes along with your values mission. If you want, organically raised seeds or, commercially raised or whatnot. Again, there's just a lot that goes into it, and it's a very personal thing. And again, a lot of times it's trial and error. I know that oftentimes you'll be buying from multiple companies. So for instance, I buy trees from a different company than what I buy seeds from, because my seed supplier, I've ordered some trees before from them, and they just haven't been very, very good trees. So again, you might have multiple seed companies that you order from depending on what you're doing. Next, have a plan. So this is the most important thing. A lot of times I talk to folks and I try and help them out, and I start asking them questions and they're like, oh, I never thought about that. So it's really important to have a plan on what you want to do with this produce, because when it starts producing and you're harvesting in the middle of harvest, that's not the time to decide what you're going to do with all that stuff. You really need to do that in advance. That way you're ready. Because otherwise it can be very overwhelming, the amount of work that you have to do to, process that produce. So oftentimes, obviously eating fresh is the main thing, right? Well, you can only eat so many tomatoes in a day, and when there's pounds and pounds of tomatoes coming off of plants, you just can't keep up. So you have to do something else with that. So are you going to can those? Are you going to freeze them? Are you going to turn them into a sauce? Again, is it going to be a blend of the above? Are you wanting to eat fresh and freeze? Are you wanting to eat fresh and can? Again, a lot of times it is a blend. And so a lot of times too, you can look at these when you're ordering seeds, and you can see my little screenshot over here. This is of a tomato variety, and so again, it talks about the uses for this specific tomato is it's good for canning, eating fresh, and for sauce. So again, that's great. That's really useful for me because, hey, I can eat it fresh and I can make sauce on it because I want to make spaghetti sauce or whatever. So, again, that's really useful. Now, remember though that the seed companies might add a lot of fluff. So, again, for this, our favorite all around tomato, so again, I look at the customer reviews and I look at a lot of things before I purchase the tomatoes also. So, again, just good information to know before you start purchasing your seeds from these seed catalogs. But again, it is really useful to kind of look to see if these crops are good for what your end use is. So most of the seed catalogs will talk about zones. Good for plant hardiness zone 6, plant hardiness zone 7. So what does that mean? Well, the plant hardiness zones actually are based off of our annual minimum winter temperature. And so it's set up into 10-degree Fahrenheit zones. And so this is most important for our perennial crops. And those are the crops that will be overwintering. And we'll talk a little bit about those later in this slide set. So for the annual things like our sweet corn and stuff like that, probably the plant hardiness zone's not as big of a deal. But if you're buying something that you're wanting to keep year after year, these plant hardiness zones do get important. So Indiana is divided into a 5B zone, which is up in more northern Indiana, a 6A, which covers kind of central and southern Indiana, and 6B kind of skirts up into southern Indiana as well. So I'm in Knox County, Indiana, which is down here in the southwest corner of the state. And as you can see, the majority of our county is a 6A, so our winter temperatures get down to -10 to -5 degrees Fahrenheit. In the southwest corner here, there is a little patch that's a 6B that's more of a -5 to 0 degree Fahrenheit. So again, our county is split a little bit between within the zone 6, but again, we are zone 6. All right. So again, as I mentioned, those plant hardiness zones are really important for our perennial crops. So this is an example of rhubarb, which obviously is a perennial crop and will live year after year. And down here, so again, this is just a clip from their online catalog, and you can see it says good for zones 3 through 8. So since I'm a zone 6, it works out really well for me. So it's kind of right in the middle there, so that's perfect. And this rhubarb should grow well in my part of the state. All right, so as I mentioned that these plant hardiness zones are really important for perennials. And perennials live for multiple years, as I mentioned before. So these include strawberry, asparagus, rhubarb, many of our tree fruit, our raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, things like that. So again, things that live year after year. So biennials, they live for 2 years. So that's another, phrase you might hear. Parsley and carrots and things in the carrot family are our biennials, but in Indiana we typically raise these as an annual crop. So we plant them in the spring, we harvest them in summer or fall time. So again, we don't really have many biennials that we have out in our garden in Indiana. Annuals live for 1 year. So you plant them in the spring and you harvest them pretty much in the fall, and then they at the first frost they die. So a lot of things like sweet corn, watermelons, cantaloupe, things like that are annuals. And we treat, again, most of our garden plants realistically we treat as annuals. The main ones, usually we just have perennials and annuals realistically in Indiana. Because we have the perennials, and then again like the asparagus and the strawberries and stuff, and then we have the annuals. So alrighty, moving on. So planting date is the next important thing to understand, and Purdue has a fabulous publication. It's this HO 186, which you can see here. And it will talk about the average last frost in the spring. So again, in Knox County, Indiana, the northern half of our county, the last frost dates usually between this April 16th and 25th. And then in southern part of the county where I live, it's actually April 6th to the 15th. So again, you can see that since we are divided, again, we have area A and area B, and you can see this in the chart. And again, this is available at this publication. And so area A, for instance, where I am, I can start planting carrots, for instance, the preferred planting date is somewhere between March 10th and April 20th for carrots. So again, you can just see this range of optimal planting dates, and you can see in this area B, sometimes it's the front date is pushed back a little bit, but the kind of the end date's usually fairly similar. So again, there's not a whole lot of difference between those, but a couple days. So again, honestly, our springs are so different every year that, you just look at your weather channels and kind of do your best on guessing, okay, are we good, or do we need to start a little early, or do we need to hold off a little later? And so again, it's going to be very different year by year. This is just the recommendation, or just to give you an idea of when you should be ready to plant those crops. All right, so you can also do fall gardening. And so a lot of times in fall gardening, you plant them in June or July sometime-ish, and then you'll harvest them around, around that first frost, or you'll, they might even last longer into November or whatnot. So again, these are kind of the last day, the last planting dates that you can plant some of these crops. And so in Knox County, we are lumped under this area G, so the entire county. And so our first frost in the fall is comes between October 16th and the 25th, which we've had some that haven't come till November. We've had some that have come earlier. So again, this is just kind of an average, and it'll be different every year. Or it can be a little different every year. So again, we're area G. So again, if I'm wanting to plant cauliflower for a fall garden, you can see that my optimal planting dates are somewhere between July 1st and August 5th. So again, this is just for fall gardening. So again, and it can be found in this publication, this HO 186. All right, so getting into, this goes along with those kind of optimal planting dates. It's days to germination and then days to harvest or maturity. And so again, this is especially the days to harvest or maturity. These are really important to understand, especially with that fall harvest date, or that fall planting. I'm sorry. So anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So days to germination is how long it takes to emerge from the ground. And then days to harvest and maturity is the time needed from the day of planting to harvest. So as you can see, if you're planting something in June, or you plant it in August and it was supposed to be planted in June, it's probably not going to mature by the time you get that first frost. So again, that day to harvest and maturity time is a really good date to know. But there is something to keep in mind, that time and temperature both are very, very important. And so again, if you plant and all of a sudden, it's been 70 degrees out, and then all of a sudden the temperature drops to, average of 50 degrees, that's going to play a major impact on the days to germination and the days to maturity, because that big of a temperature drop, the soils will cool down, and so those plants will just grow a lot slower. So again, those days to germination and maturity dates are all kind of averages again. So again, that temperature and time will be definitely really important to keep in mind. And again, those earlier late flowering varieties can change, again, that time to harvest from planting. And again, it's kind of based off of the time and temperature. Again, it's all kind of relative and gives you an average. So it's good to keep records of planting and harvesting dates, or planting and emergence dates, for instance, because if you do that year after year, you'll get an idea of roughly how much time you really need to produce that sweet corn or that tomato crop. Alrighty, so here's an example of one of the seed catalogs, and this company actually lists the number of days until green peppers, which is 57 days, and then they also list the number of days until they turn red, so it takes them 77 days to turn red. So again, between green and red, that's 20 days. So you have to look and go, okay, do I have 20 days available to wait for this? Or is it, in the fall and you have a frost coming and you go, okay, I just need to harvest my peppers green this year. Or yeah, I have about 30 days until they're expecting a frost, so we'll be good and we'll see if we can get these to turn red. So again, these are some useful guidelines, and again, it's kind of dependent on that, that temperature really dictates how fast or slow this goes too. So if it's warmer, it might go a little faster than that 77 days. If it's cooler, it might be a little slower. So again, just an example of another seed catalog and how they list that. And as you can see with this seed catalog, they have lots of different ways you can buy this seed. Again, this is all seeds, and you can buy either 100 seeds or 25,000 seeds. So again, there's quite a price range with this catalog. Alrighty. So with that, we are going to end our part 1 section for navigating those seed catalogs, and we will have our second and third sections posted as well, and it will be on the Purdue Extension-Knox County YouTube channel. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you have any questions, you can find me on Facebook at Purdue Extension-Knox County ANR, or you can find our information and more information on our county website. Thank you so much and have a great day.